Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Amanda, an amateur writer and literature enthusiast. My one passion in life is writing, so it's about time that I made a video with that theme. Since English isn't my native language, I am most often asked why I even bother. But sometimes people ask what I do to improve my English. Once upon a time, when I was just a little teenager, I did think that to become above average, all I had to do was read a lot and write a lot, and I never had a problem doing either of those things. So I thought it would just happen spontaneously. Eventually, I did realize that that's not enough, at least not for me. I do have to put in active effort in order to improve. One specific thing I do is to train my vocabulary in a very specific way. And it's something that you can do on your own if you want. But why not do it here with me? That would be so much more fun, I think. Since this is the first video of this kind on my channel, I'll give a little explanation so that we can jump straight into it for the next one. Many years ago, I signed up for the dictionary.com word of the day email. At first, I thought that I would just keep the words I liked in a folder on my email, but that quickly became untenable. So I started collating them into a single document, which is the prototype of my vocab training list, which I have mentioned in previous videos. The format of this list has undergone changes since its inception. In the beginning, it was mostly more complicated words because dictionary.com's email tended toward the more obscure, which was part of the charm at the time. I am still very fond of that kind of thinking, maybe too much at times. But the list consisted of, anyway, was the words and some of their definitions. Barely all of them. Quite soon, after making this list, I had a realization, an awakening about my inability with English. I had learned most of what I knew from reading and from playing video games. And while those things helped me get ahead in school, I realized that I had also made a lot of assumptions about the meanings of words. Very often, I had not picked up on a nuance of a word because of those assumptions. I didn't look them up or anything. Since I was becoming very comfortable both with dictionary.com and list making, I put them to more extensive use. Of course, whenever I heard a word that I didn't know, I put it on a list. But also, whenever there was a word that I did know, but maybe it was used in a slightly different way than I would have used it, I also looked it up, and often I would find a nuance that I wasn't aware of because I hadn't looked it up before. And I realized that I had to relearn a whole lot. Being self-taught has significant disadvantages at times. So my word list began to include quite ordinary words, just to highlight for myself that nuance which I didn't know before. And the list grew more and more detailed. At some point, I don't remember exactly when, I learned about different dictionaries. At first, I used dictionary.com because of the word of the day and because it seemed very extensive. It was rarely that I searched for a word on dictionary.com and didn't find it. However, a dictionary being bigger doesn't necessarily mean that it's better suited for your purposes. I began to shop around, comparing articles between different dictionaries, and eventually I came to Merriam-Webster. And because the free version doesn't include all of the words, I thought that just for the heck of it, I would try the paid version, and I was immediately hooked. It's fantastic. So if you're someone who's willing to pay for a subscription to a good dictionary, then I highly recommend. 10 out of 10. Last year, I spent a lot of time converting my earlier word lists to the Merriam-Webster formula rather than dictionary.com's, and it was very educational, I will say. It's been a long while that I've been much more interested in using language effectively rather than nerding out about highly specified words, though I still enjoy that a lot. So, what do I do with this huge list of mine. Well, it's here it is. Well, part of it is here. It's invited like this one. I've named it words, which I think is very cleverly descriptive of the content. I printed it out because my writing brain works slightly differently whether I write by hand or on the computer. And to be honest, I think it works better when I write by hand. This is what it looks like. As you can see, half of the pages are blank for writing upon, like so. And what I do is that I go down the list and for every word write a sentence using that word. So I'm not trying to memorize anything because I can't do that for very long or very effectively, to be honest. Writing sentences, on the other hand, also gets my creative brain involved. It is a great writing activity for whenever you're stuck on a project. Well, it helps me quite a lot, actually. A lot of writers swear by the method of getting your writing muscles toned by writing every single day, regardless if that's a journal or free association or anything, just to get into the habit of writing. I've never needed this advice. I have so many projects that it's never difficult for me to find something that I would want to write or to edit or whatever. There's always something that I can do. But if you have a writing slot in your schedule, then maybe this is for you. You can try it. Come on, try it at least. I have spent all too much time on this list, and it is curated to my knowledge and my taste. So when we do the exercise, we'll have a look at the full definitions as well. You can, of course, start curating your own list. I do think that just doing that is a good basis for learning a word. But if you don't want to get stuck into that activity, then come here to my channel and have some of mine. But why wouldn't you want to know exactly what a word means? I don't get it, but apparently a lot of people find this kind of thing really boring. I know, it's so strange. Not everybody finds a dictionary exciting. Anyway, the rules of the exercise is to pick a definition of a word and write a sentence using it. It doesn't have to be inventive or even good. It just has to be correct. And that is not to build obstacles. I find it works better when I just keep it flowing. Often enough, good sentences will happen anyway. And whenever I write one that I'm particularly happy with, I mark it with an X to later be typed into yet another document with yet another list. I have so many. You have no idea. Most often, the sentences of one session tend to pertain to a particular story that I'm thinking about. So it's also a great way to develop ideas. You'd think I'd invented the perfect exercise or something. I don't do it nearly often enough myself. It is so much easier just to play RimWorld watching YouTube. Not today, Satan. I think the best course is to start at the top and work our way down. There will perforce be more of these videos, you'll see. But without further ado, let's get started. So, as you can see, there are 245 pages of this as of yet, and it's not fully up to date. I am heavily reluctant to remove words from it, even once I've learned them. If I like a word and I'm not 100% on all of the definitions, it stays. I think I'm going to remove nebulize, though, because I put it here from the dictionary.com definition, which included the more abstract example of to cause to become obscure or nebulous. And it's just not as useful without that definition, so I'm doing the very difficult thing of removing it. There. That was hard, but I survived. Thank you very much. So what we'll do is I'll bring up the definition on Merriam-Webster and I'll give you 20 seconds to write a sentence to keep it short. Of course, you can pause to give yourself more time and I'll write mine. I'll see if I can find some more copyright-free music to put on while we work. Check the description for information about it. And let me know whether it makes a difference. Maybe you're listening to your own music and don't want to be bothered with mine. I'll put this list over on my other screen out of the way. and that way it's easier for me to skip words I'm not into right now. Again, the purpose is to keep the exercise going, to flow as naturally as possible, so that way you can do it for longer, which I find helpful. So, alright, our first word is to darkle, which is an intransitive verb. If you would want a video about the differences between intransitive verbs and transitive words, as from someone who doesn't have an expert opinion about it, let me know. Don't see why you would want me to say anything about it, but sure. Darkle, which has 3 definitions. To lurk in the dark, to lie concealed in as if in the dark, to grow dark, fade into darkness, or to become clouded or gloomy. And I'll, as I said, 20 seconds, starting now. Fantastic. And my example is the sun darkled behind a bank of clouds. See, it doesn't have to be extravagant, just basically correct is what we're after. Okay? So, our next word is paralepsis, which has the definition of a passing over with brief mention in order to emphasize rhetorically the suggestiveness of what is omitted. As in, I confine to this page the volume of his treacheries and debaucheries. And this is a sort of, a lot of people would say that I don't need to know this word. When am I ever going to use this word? But those words are fun too, just so you know. And here we go. Fantastic. And my example is, the paralepsis obviously struck as an insult to the import of the lives ruined. See? Fairly natural at least, and that's all we're after, that it's good enough. And our next word is elegiac. And in this case, we can see that elegiac in the unabridged dictionary has an extensive and very specific definition. So in these cases, it might be better to go to the collegiate dictionary option, which makes it a little shorter, a little more condensed. Because especially if it's something that's you're not an expert on, then it might be easier. And the subscription to Merriam-Webster gives you both. The unabridged dictionary has more entries than the collegiate dictionary, so you have a choice there. The word elegiac has one very specific meaning in poetry in ancient Greece, which I sort of disregard because I probably won't be using it in that way. The one definition which I will probably be using is the second one, which is of relating to or comprising elegy or an elegy, especially expressing sorrow often for something now past, which is more useful. So I'm using that one. Fantastic. The sentence I made is, the very mention of his name struck an elegiac tone in court. Our next word is pleonasm. I think I'm staying on the collegiate dictionary version of Merriam-Webster just because it's easier for in the video format. The word pleonasm has 2 definitions. The first one is the use of more words than those necessary to denote mere sense, as in, the man, he said, redundancy. And the second is an instant of pleonasm, which is also feels half redundant but also not. This is why dictionaries are wonderful. is I also appreciate that Merriam-Webster often have suggestions of other forms of the word. So if you want to use as an adjective, it's pleonastic. Or if you want to use it as an adverb, it's pleonastically. And I've noticed that the Collegiate Dictionary tend to have more of these suggestions than the unabridged. I have no idea why, but that's just a tip for any users of Merriam-Webster. And that's 20 seconds. My sentence was, she was reluctantly impressed by his facility with pleonasm, which isn't the best one. Generally, I would like the meaning of the word to be obvious from the sentence itself, but I'm not putting that demand on myself either, because I would get stuck. And we don't, which remember we want to avoid getting stuck. And our next word is copacetic. In this case, I do remember that there is a difference between the Collegiate Dictionary and the unabridged dictionary, because the unabridged dictionary has the added information that it's informal, particular to the US. If you're writing a character that's not American, then maybe not use this word, simply. It's always good to check different dictionaries, so it's good that Merriam-Webster has alternatives, to me at least. But the definition is the same. It's very satisfactory or fine and dandy. And 20 seconds. And my sentence is waiting to observe just how copacetic his efforts turned out. And our next word is sapid. And we're going back to the Collegiate Dictionary for this one because it's smaller, with the first definition being having flavor, flavorful. The second definition being marked with archaic, which we should also keep in mind, which is agreeable to the mind. And as a writer of fantasy, using archaic words or archaic definitions of words can be finessed, but you should still have it in mind, I think. Excellent. And my example is clients refusing anything but the most sapid of treats. And our next word is votary, which has the 4 possible definitions as well as a 5th archaic one with the same rules applied. So the definitions are devotee, or a devoted admirer, or a devout or zealous worshipper, or a staunch believer or advocate. And our archaic definition is a sworn adherent. My example is, as of yet, skeptical of this convenient votary in his time of need, which is pretty good, I think. And don't forget to put your favorite sentences in the comments. I would love to see them. And our next word is Weltschmerz, which is a funny word because it's German. I am partial to foreign words which have just been adopted into English, and there are a lot of them, and a lot of the good ones are German or French. I don't know, I guess it feels like the words are so good, or the words are so, the meaning of the words are still so pure that there's not an English version of them. You have to assume them directly from the other language. Weltschmerz has two definitions. The first one being mental depression or apathy caused by comparison of the actual state of the world with an ideal state, into a mood of sentimental sadness, which are both good, very good. I challenge you to find the equivalent without resorting to German. And 20 seconds. My example is whipping herself with reproach whenever she sensed Weltschmerz strike her mood. Again, that sentence wouldn't stand on its own. It would have to be made clear in surrounding sentences what the word actually means for people. Or maybe it's a really common word. I don't really know. I don't speak English every day. Don't remember where I heard it first. And our next word is mendacity, which also has two definitions. The first one being the quality or state of being mendacious, which helps us so much. Thank you very much for that definition. But the second definition is it gives us more of a clue, which means lie. So being mendacious is being untruthful. Excellent. And my offering here is seeing the mendacity as a far greater betrayal. And our next word is bandersnatch, which, as we can see, does not exist in the collegiate dictionary, which also tells us something about how to use this word because it exists in the unabridged dictionary. So there's a lot of information here which we need to keep in mind. And the definition of a bandersnatch is a wildly grotesque or bizarre individual. It's always good to have creative insults rather than just cursing someone out. It's much more satisfying to be able to degrade them verbally with a creative tinge to it. And my offering is viewing her as a bandersnatch, somehow having infiltrated their midst. And since the definition is so limited, I'm not exactly sure if that's how you would use it, but it's how I would use it, which is good enough for now. And our next word is jaundice. Going back to the collegiate dictionary with two definitions. The first definition is affected with or as if with jaundice, which is another one of those fantastically helpful definitions. If you don't know what jaundice is, then it won't help. It's for the skin and eyes and whatever to turn yellow, which happens during certain sicknesses. We can always click on jaundice to see what it means. I think jaundiced as an adjective is more useful, which is why it's on the list. And the second definition, which is the one you would be using unless you're talking about someone's actual physical appearance, is exhibiting or influenced by envy, distaste, or hostility. And my example is, he was unable to disguise the jaundiced tinge to the thrown glance. And I like that I used it to describe a look, because it's often used, jaundice is often used of the eyes. So it's not exactly the eyes, but it's of the eyes, which is pretty nice, if I do say so myself. Anyway, next word is askance, which is an adverb with two definitions. The first one, with approval or distrust, scornfully, or with a side glance, obliquely. So there's a practical and a more abstract definition, which is always nice, very flexible. I'll have another one as well. Sort of the same thing, but anyway. I got two sentences if I mumbled. The riddle must be approached askance, and a direct approach would surely be turned askance. I like both of them, so they're both staying. And our next word is lol, not LOL, though some people do pronounce it as lol. I did once upon a time. In a period of my life, I articulated LOL as lol. Lol with two L's can be both a verb and a noun. Definition being, as an intransitive verb, it is to hang loosely or laxly, droop, or to act or move in a lax, lazy, or indolent manner, lounge. As a transitive verb, it has the definition to let droop or dangle. And I guess I'll do not sure whether that's correct. The lull of the hand over the couch betrayed her unconsciousness. I wonder now if that's right. I'll look at it later. For now, it's fine. Don't you agree? And our next word is anime, which I have recently had a lot of discussions about in real life, what it means and how you react to it. It is a very interesting subject, which is condensed into a single definition, which is social instability resulting from a breakdown of standards and values. Also, personal unrest, alienation, and uncertainty that comes from a lack of purpose or ideals, with the adjective form being anomic. It was very interesting to explore it. Though when I first wrote this word down, I had no idea. I hadn't had any of these discussions, so it was very interesting for me to see a word which I had, jotted down because I wanted to learn it, but never thought that I would have any use for it. To have it pop out in my real life was really interesting for me. For me is the key phrase there. Here we go. And my example is trying to stay sane in the general state of anime was madness in itself. I'm not super thrilled with this one either, but it's fine, I guess. And our next word is perdition, which is, a lot of people will know this word better than I do. Anyone accustomed to Christian rhetoric will know this word better than I did when I learned it. It has two contemporary definitions, being eternal damnation or hell, which is interesting that it's both, the state of perdition and an actual place, which is interesting. It also has the archaic definition of utter destruction and the obsolete definition of loss. It's good to see that there is a differentiation between archaic and simply obsolete. They are not the same thing. Let's keep that in mind. Go. And my example is, as though he alone could raise her from her perdition, which is figurative, of course, in this case. And our next word is sepulchral, the first definition of which is another one of those fantastic ones, and it's also a word which I'm not very confident in pronouncing, so let's go see. Sepulcher. So the first definition is of or relating to a sepulcher. I know this word simply from playing Titan Quest, where there are a lot of sepulchres to open for goodies. And the second definition is suited to or suggestive of a sepulchre, funereal, which is very good. The possibilities are endless in this use. So let's hope we'll come up with a good one. Oh, I know. Only a few bothering to attempt a smile at the sepulchral wedding. That was pretty good. This is a very good word. I'm very partial to it. And our next word is obscurantism. I think. Should we listen to this one as well? Let's try it.
Obscurantism.
Obscurantism. Which means 1. Opposition to the spread of knowledge, a policy of withholding knowledge from the general public. 2. A style, as in literature or art, characterized by deliberate vagueness or abstruseness, or an act or instance of obscurantism. Also very useful, so let's try it. And my example is, their obscurantism was accepted by most without spoken question. And our next word is knavery. And we'll do one more after this one, but then I think it's enough for this first time around. Knavery, having 2 relevant definitions, one being rascality and the other a roguish or mischievous act. The obsolete definition being roguish mischief, which also illustrates my pet peeve of people pronouncing mischievous as mischievous, because that's wrong. It's mischievous as in mischief. Easy to remember. Now you'll never forget, I hope. It's annoying, but also completely useless, which is why it's a pet peeve. Here we go. And my sentence is pretending at knavery to inject the slightest thrill. And a final one is appetency. Appetency, which means a fixed and strong desire, appetite, with the adjective form of appetent, which I also like very much. And here we go. And my example is, you will want to hide that appetency until your position is secured, which is fine, I guess. Not excellent, but good enough for YouTube, I guess. And that's just about 20, I think. So well done, everybody. And back to me, I guess. Good job if you played along. And don't forget to, if you came up with some a particularly good one, then write them in the comments. I would love to see them. And correct me if I'm wrong about anything. I'm only happy to hear that. I plan on making more of these, so tell me if it's too long or too short. I do want to keep them relatively bite-sized, because my literature videos will be as long as they are, because I do think that philosophically, I do think that literature should take the time it takes. So I do want to devote as much time as necessary to each book I'm reading, I think is the right way to go. But it does mean that they take a lot of time for me to make. Right now, I'm in my second read of The Eye of the World. So it would be optimistic to say that that video will be out soon, because it won't. I still have to do so many things, but it's getting there. I'm making progress. That's the important part, isn't it? It would be nice for me to have these kind of videos where I also don't have to be on camera, because that adds a lot of complications to the process. This is my third attempt for this video. The first one was messed up because I fiddled with the settings in OBS, not the brightest for someone like me. I thought the second went fine until I started editing it, and I hated everything about it. So of course I had to do it again. So it feels wrong to say that it would be good to have a lower effort kind of video to put up on my channel, but it's the truth. Not being on camera will make it a lot easier, and also not having to write a script for it is better. So look forward to some low effort content. I'm sure it will be great. My long-term plans for the channel is I do want to start with live streaming. And my specific idea for live streaming is, I got the idea for it because I have known so many creative people who say that they just have trouble getting to the point of sitting down and working with their project. So my idea is that in this live stream is us being creative together, working on our own particular project. So my goal is to indie publish a book for the first time. And I have chosen the story for it, and I have chosen the platform. So all I have to do now is to finish it. It's a lot of work, which is why I haven't started yet. So I thought that I would start live streaming the process of making this book that I'm going to publish. It won't be very eventful. It's me typing, and if someone drops into the chat, me having a little talk about whatever we're doing would be nice. In the very long term, if I were to have a community of any kind, I would like it to be focused on creative writing, because that's my passion. That's the thing that I might share with the world in some shape. I'm still figuring things out, but I will make an announcement whenever I have settled on a date and format and all of those things. I'm still gathering opinions from people I know, real life people, the people who have given me opinions said, oh, that would be nice, but a wonderful idea. I don't know if many people would watch it, but it's a very nice idea. And yeah, I think a very nice idea. I don't know if anyone will like it. That's a good enough place to start, I think. So you are all also welcome to join me for that adventure as well. But that's it for today. So have a wonderful rest of your week, and I hope I'll see you soon. Thank you for watching. Bye. I so profoundly really hated the second attempt. It was horrible. My hair looked really strange, and for some reason I got the idea that it would be a good idea to wear really dark lipstick, even though I hardly ever wear lipstick. I thought that it would be a good idea to start with a really dark one, and it wasn't. It was not a good idea. I didn't look like myself, and I kept thinking that my lips are moving strangely because of the lipstick. They're not good at all. So this time I'm wearing lipstick which is virtually the same color as my actual lips, which makes so much more sense. Anyway, maybe I'll work my way up to something more bold, Well, anyway, have a fantastic Rest. Have a fantastic day, evening, or morning, or anything. Bye.